here on Equativ's yacht, and we're going to talk about how this ad tech company is navigating the future of the open web. I'm with Michael Lehman, the president of Equativ, and I'm Sarah Sluice, editorial director at AdExchanger. So let's talk about Cannes this year. The tone is a bit different. We're really enjoying ourselves, but also there's palpable concern about the future of the space driven by the economy, AI, uploaded supply chain. So what's your take on all of that?
First of all, thank you for having me. Directionally, I would agree. I would say the tone of Cannes feels a little different. I think the tone across the industry feels different over the past few years or so, and I think it's primarily driven by a feeling and a sense of uncertainty about the future. I think for many years, honestly, probably the last decade or so, with a little break for the concern about what's going to happen in the future of the cookie. Outside of that, I think the industry for a long period of time was building towards a future that I think everybody felt fairly aligned on. And now to your point, there's all this global uncertainty around the economy. I think the bigger question, of course, is about AI, AI's implication on society, AI's implication on content, AI's implication more specifically within digital advertising on the supply chain. All these things, I think, are creating a sense of concern and a sense of uncertainty around what we're building towards. And uncertainty, I think, is often what leads to anxiety within business. And that's, I think, what the industry is primarily wrestling with right now.
So is there any way to make us feel less uncertain, Michael?
Well, I know, like, generally for these kind of things, it's more exciting if somebody has a very scary point of view. I know that's what leads to viewership, but honestly, I'm an optimist.
I feel that.
Yeah, I can't help it. I mean, sometimes maybe it leads to like a rosier picture of things, but I am generally an optimist. I feel very bullish about the future of the space. I think the analogy I would use here is like psychiatrists will say the first 3 years, I know you're a mother, right? So the first 3 years of a child's life is like highly formative, like completely shapes their perspective on the future and like their view of the world. My first 3 years in the industry was right around the birth of RTB and the birth of programmatic. And it was like very much a similar moment. So RTB, programmatic advertising was coming. Everybody was very anxious about what was going to happen. Was it going to put companies out of business? Was there going to even be a use for an ad agency? What's going to happen to publishers? Do salespeople go away, right? Very similar feeling overall. And, you know, at that moment, it's true, like it was a challenging time for certain companies. Certain companies that were dominant and performing really well suffered, but it also led to a huge period of innovation. It led to a lot of VC investment and money, a lot of growing companies, a lot of opportunity for the space. It's been the period that's defined my career overall. And so I actually see this moment in a very similar light. I think AI is going to be it'll be challenging for certain companies. It'll be challenging for publishers, obviously. Ad agencies will need to reinvent their model. We can talk about these things if you want, but I think it will lead to a really, really exciting period once we get past this initial sort of like definition of what AI is and what the use cases are.
So let's look for the optimistic take on AI. You mentioned publishers, and we know that they're really getting hit in every direction right now due to AI. There's less search traffic because of AI overviews. The LLMs are scraping all of their content. CPMs from programmatic are under pressure. There's a lot of AI-ridden content, right? So that's another area of concern. So where do you find the optimism among the opportunity?
Yeah, well, I would start by saying that we often use the word publishers just so broadly. Like publishers as a business and as an entity are not a monolith. There are so many different segments and kinds of publishers. And I would agree, honestly, for smaller publishers, long-tail publishers who have honestly thrived in the age of programmatic will invariably feel a lot of pressure. I think they already are. I think their traffic is shrinking. I think they're trying to reinvent and figure out how do we compete in this model and in this new world. I think for premium publishers, there's a really, really meaningful opportunity for them. You could see a world where, you know, the digital ad market is going to remain as large as it is. And so for a lot of these more premium publishers who have, in a lot of instances, suffered in the world of programmatic and lost a lot of dollars to their competitive set, you could see a world where if the market stays as large and their competitive set is more challenged, dollars, CPMs find their way back into premium environments. And the reliance on premium publishers goes up from a consumer standpoint. Because I think we can all agree that, like, you know, LLMs are valuable for certain use cases, but at the same time, as far as my experience using LLMs and everybody else's that I know, like, nobody is comfortable getting the entirety of their information from a robot. You know, it's a very uncomfortable feeling. Big brands with high editorial standards, with strong content, with writers people trust, can really thrive in this moment. They have to diversify their strategy, of course. But I think it's a world where they can stand out even more so and compete from an ad dollar standpoint. in an even more competitive way.
So the cream can rise to the top
I would
in
say
this new
so.
environment. If you're doing a good job, you'll continue to do well.
I would say so.
Others might be a little bit more challenged. Okay, I like that optimistic view.
Thank you.
So as we walk down the Quasette, there's a lot of AI in the marketing, powered by AI. You see it everywhere, and it's sometimes hard to tell what's real and what's fiction or optimism without anything underneath it. So what's your take on that? How do you distinguish between what companies are have real AI products and how AI can help ad tech and those that maybe don't?
Yeah. Is it too much optimism? Do you want a negative take on this? Or?
You can give a little side eye to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, so the side eye I would give on that is my estimation at this point will be that a lot of AI marketing is, to your point, is sort of cosmetic. There's a huge amount of investment and focus on AI, but the actual applications, I think, are still in the early stages. And that's the job of these companies, by the way. This is not a knock on any of these companies. They have to tell the story of what they're building and what the future looks like. Future looks very AI focused. So I think it's appropriate within the marketing. The reality is it's hard to tell where it's all going to shake out. So you've covered the programmatic space for a long time, right? So
Oh, yeah.
Imagine a world where we're 12 years into programmatic advertising. Imagine a world where we actually understood why a bid response and a bid request met the way they did. Like the understanding of of performance within the programmatic supply chain remains really murky. It's kind of frustrating that we can't make more progress. And I think that is the promise of AI. I think all these companies can meet in a place where the standards across the industry have improved. We can tackle some of these very fundamental issues within the space, within the supply chain, that we haven't been able to tackle for a variety of different reasons. And the whole industry from there can start to elevate. We can focus on more compelling issues, more innovative issues, more analytical issues, more creative issues that the fundamentals of programmatic advertising have not allowed us to. Regardless of the marketing piece, I think there's just a general up-leveling that's going to occur across the industry. And again, some companies will really benefit from that. Some will feel more challenged. But the opportunity and pressure around innovation will become far more real. And I think that's what folks should be looking for.
I like this take. I haven't heard that before. I think that AI can lead to more transparency and understanding about what's going on, and also the kind view that people are telling a story about the future. And I think then the question is if you believe in that future that's not quite yet built yet, because there's a lot of different stories being told out there.
That is true. That is true. Yeah.
To kind of go back to some of the challenges that we're seeing, there's a lot of CFOs that want to cut marketing budgets. It's often the first place people go in times of uncertainty. So what's your take on that? And are you seeing spend behavior change? What do you think people should look out for the rest of 2026?
It's a good question. I think going back to the original topic we were discussing, in moments of uncertainty, in business generally, people just stop doing anything. So when the market is bad, companies can have a strategy for that. When the market is frothy, obviously companies can have a strategy. When the future remains uncertain, nobody has a strategy because they don't know in what direction to make their bets, right? Mm-hmm. And so we've felt this in a few instances. We felt it obviously during COVID for a short period of time, but it took the industry a solid year to regain its footing after pausing. And then I think we felt that last year when tariffs were announced, there was this pause of activity that led to performance issues that I think a lot of marketers are still coming back from. And there's a little bit of that going on right now. And I think the way we talk to our clients is very much that any sort of strategy adjustment you make right now, any sort of pause you make right now, it takes a while to really fully understand the implications of that and how that's going to affect your business. And so we've heard marketers say oh, we've pulled back on spend and we haven't seen any change in results, but it's 3 weeks later that they're looking. And as you know, marketing dollars work for years and years and years and years. And so having a more long-term view on your strategy will allow you to make, I think, smarter decisions in the short term. And this is across the industry. This is for marketers, of course, agencies, brands, ad tech. Having a 3 to 5 year plan will allow you not to get distracted by any sort of short-term bumps that we're running into.
Okay, so when people are feeling paralyzed, they pause, and that's not always the right decision, or that's a decision that you'll see the effects of a long way down the line. So we're going to wrap everything up, pull it together.
Okay.
We see that AI is handling targeting, optimization, creative personalization, measurement, all these things we're seeing on the Quasette and in our day-to-day lives. But where do humans fit in to that? And where does ad tech fit into that.
Yeah, no one will ever convince me. I mean, maybe in 100 years when we reach like Matrix level, robots will take over, but nobody can convince me in the short term that AI and technology will replace humans. And I think you feel it in this industry more than any industry in the world, where people make decisions based on people. And in every instance I can think of over the past few years, where companies have fully turned their strategy over to the algorithm, it has led to bad results. And I think people feel that way very much about AI. I think human oversight is critical. I think people have relationships and make business decisions based on the people they're working with. And I also think in the short term, certainly in the next few years, a lot of the information and content that AI is pushing out doesn't replace the human voice whatsoever. And I think we just all feel this as a consumer, right? When you are reading information that feels written by AI, when you're watching content that is created by AI, honestly, when I get Slack notifications that are like AI generated or the Slack bot,
I know what you're talking
you know
about.
what I'm talking about? You'll ignore that versus if your boss sends you a Slack, you immediately respond to it, right? So built into us is this aversion to completely listen to robots and AI. And I think that is based fundamentally on, and this is maybe more philosophical than you're looking for, the human need to interact with other humans. And I think that's going to be impossible to replace for a long time.
Okay, so humans, we've still got a place. We're
Yes.
sitting on this yacht, and we
I
will
hope
be
so.
as long
I hope so,
as
yeah.
we can. Thank you, and merci, Michael.
Merci, Sarah.